my name is Eileen. I'm the youth librarian here at the Portland District Library. I want to welcome everybody to Bead Buddies, our program where we're going to be making bead animal keychains. And I hope you've already picked up your take and make bag here at the library. They are a little bit smaller than the take and make bags you may or may not have been used to with our virtual programming. So we had 4 different animal designs that you could choose from. It was either going to be a duck, a lizard, panda, or a fox. And what I'm going to show you here today is our technique for actually weaving and threading the beads on to create our keychains. And I'm going to show you using the lizard pattern, and that's mostly because the beads are a different color than your actual pattern that everybody got. The duck, the panda, and the fox, all the beads match your pattern in your bag, the colors, so you should have an easier time matching them up and laying your designs out. So I'm going to just run through the technique of how you should do your animals, whether you got the duck, the lizard, the panda, or the fox, but I'm going to show you specifically how to do the lizard here today. And you can just use the techniques that I'm showing you to create your other animals. So let's just jump right in here. Hello crafters! So as you can see here, I have the 4 different take and make bags set out in front of me. So you should either have a fox, a panda, a lizard, or a duck. I'm going to go ahead and put the fox, panda, and duck off to the side. So here is my lizard, and in your take and make bag you will also have a little sheet of paper that looks like this, and it's going to have a printed copy of your animal design on it, and you will need these to help you lay the beads out on the table in the order that you thread them onto your string. And inside your take and make bag, once you open it up, you will have all of your beads that you'll need. You will have a white piece of corded string, and then you're also going to have a keychain ring. And what you're going to start with is your cord, your white cord, and your keychain ring. Now, for this project, you will need a pair of scissors, and I would recommend getting a piece of tape. That will help you when you actually start to thread your beads onto your string. It'll just hold everything nice and tight for you. So I'm going to show you how to tie your key ring onto your string. No matter what animal you have, that is going to be your first step. So the first step to any of the Bead Buddy animal keychains is you're going to need your key ring and your string. So what you want to do is you want to find the 2 ends of your string. So you're going to want to kind of lay this out, stretch it out. You're going to find the 2 loose ends of your string. So there's my loose ends. And then I'm going to kind of pull to make the string have a loop on the other end. So here's my loop, and here on the other end is my loose ends. And what you're going to do is you're going to take that end with the loop, and you're going to take your key ring, and you're going to thread that loop up through your key ring, and then you're going to kind of pull it up. So hopefully you can kind of see that. And then you're going to, once you have that loop threaded through the keychain, you're going to go ahead and you're going to take those loose ends of your string, both of them, you're going to put them together, and you're going to weave them through that loop. And then you're just going to pull tight. And what you have on your key ring is called a lark knot. And I'm going to show you a close-up here. Hopefully you can see this okay. So that is what it's going to look like on your key ring. Okay. So now that we have our key ring and our cord ready to go, we're going to go ahead and start to work with our beads. So what you're going to need is you're going to need that little sheet of paper with the pattern printed on it and your bag of beads. And what I would recommend is that you carefully take your beads out of your bag. If you kind of just dump the bag over your table, you might have beads running everywhere. And we gave you just the exact right amount of beads that you're going to need for your Bead Buddy. So what you're going to do is you are going to look at your picture of your animal, and you're just going to lay out the beads in the order that you see them here. So what we're going to do with the lizard is the light green that makes up his kind of face and arms is actually the turquoise blue. And then the darker green that makes up his legs and his inner body are the blue beads. So you should have teal, blue, and then you're also going to have 2 black beads for his eyes. So again, you're just going to go line by line from the top of his nose to the bottom of his tail. And all of your animals, you're going to start at the top. So always start with the top. That's where the key ring is going to go. So right here we have 1 teal bead, and then we have 2 teal beads, And then we have his eyeballs, and there's a teal bead in the middle. So we have the 2 black beads and then the one in the center. So again, go ahead and just look at your diagram here and just start with the different rows. And you'll just slowly start to see your animal kind of come, the whole picture kind of come together here once you've started laying those out. And for his arms, I'm just gonna kind of put it off to the side. And you can leave as much space in between your rows because again, we're just preparing to actually create our keychains here. Doing this will just save you time and confusion when you're actually threading all your beads. And this step is especially helpful if you've never made one of these before. So again, it just makes the whole threading process a lot easier because you're not trying to count beads out and make sure you've done everything correctly while you're threading everything onto your cord. So now that we have threaded our key ring onto our cord and we've laid out our bead pattern, we can start lacing our beads and creating our bead buddy. And what I'm gonna have you do is, if you did have some tape at home, I am gonna have you tape your key ring to the table. So I'm gonna take my tape here and I'm just gonna tape my key ring to the table. And again, this will just help keep it in place, and as you're kind of pulling your cord tight to keep those beads on there, this is just gonna make it that much easier for you. Okay, so now that I have my key ring taped to the table, I am gonna start with my very first bead. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna look at your top row on your bead buddy, and you're gonna take the left side of your cord. So here you can see I have a right side and a left side. And you're gonna take the left side of your cord and you're gonna thread your first bead, which again, you're gonna start at whatever the top of the picture is. And we're starting with his snout. So I'm gonna take that first bead and I'm gonna weave it onto my cord. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the other side of the cord and weave it through the bead. So you're gonna take it and you're gonna weave it through the bead. And you're gonna pull all the way through. And then you're gonna pull tight on both sides. So now you should have your first row on there. And now you're gonna do the exact same thing with the second row. So the second row on our lizard has 2 beads. So I'm gonna take the left cord, it's always gonna be the left cord, and you're gonna string those beads on there. You're gonna string them all the way on there. And then you're gonna take your right cord and you're gonna weave it through those 2 beads that you just put on there. So you're gonna take your time and you're gonna weave that through both of the beads. And this part can get a little bit tricky, so just take your time. And then if you start to pull tight on both ends of your cord, you'll see how we've started creating the snout on the lizard. And if you have one of the other animals, again, the technique is the same. You always start by threading the beads on the left side cord, and then you weave the right side cord through those beads and you pull tight. So here we go. Now we've got our eyes to put on our lizards. I'm gonna take my black bead. And again, this is the left side cord, a teal bead, and a black bead. And if your if your cord starts to fray on the end, you can just start cutting it a little bit. You can trim it a little bit. Okay, so I've got my 3 beads on there, and now I can take my right side cord and weave that through those 3 beads. And once I have my right side cord threaded through my 3 beads, I'm gonna go ahead and find both my ends and just start pulling tight. Okay, so the next thing that I want to show everyone is how to do arms or tails or wings. So our lizard here has 4 arms on his body, but we're just going to start with the first 2 that come up at the top of his body. So what you're going to do is, once you've completed all the rows above the arms or the legs or the wings or the ears or anything like that, what you're going to do is you're going to start with one side. So what we're going to do is, I'll show you how to do one side. So we're going to take the 2 teal beads and then the 3 blue beads that make his arm. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the teal beads, so the ones that are closest to the inside of his body. And then I'm going to follow that up with the 3 blue beads. And I am going to have to trim my cord here on the end. It's become a little bit too frayed for me, so I'm gonna do that once I'm done threading. So I've just threaded my 5 beads on there, and I've just trimmed my cord a little bit. And instead of taking the right hand side and weaving that through, I'm staying with the same side cord that I threaded those onto. So I'm starting with the left arm here, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to thread it through all of the beads. I'm just threading it through the 2 teal ones, the ones that are actually like his legs instead of his hands. So I'm going to go ahead and just thread that through the 2 teal beads. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull tight. And you will have to pull tight like on your cords throughout the entire project, because it does come loose until you actually knot it at the very end. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull all my cord nice and tight. And hopefully you can see, once I've pulled tight, that his little arm has now formed. And now I'm going to do his right arm. So instead of taking the left cord, I'm going to start with the right hand cord. And I'm going to take my 2 teal beads and then my 3 blue beads. And then I'm going to take the same sided cord and I'm going to weave it just through the 2 teal beads that make up his the arm part of his arm. And then I'm going to pull tight. And once I've pulled tight, you can hopefully see that he now has arms. And now that we have done his 2 arms at the top of his body, we can continue doing the rest of his body part, the middle part of his body, until we get to those next 2 arms. And then we have to go back to our arm threading technique here. So I'm going to keep going, and just going to take that. So hopefully by this point you're seeing why it's a good idea to lay out your bead design, because again, it just makes the whole threading process a little bit faster and a little easier. And just remember, always start with the left side thread. And I realize in the video you might be thinking, that's the right and that's the left. I'm doing it from my perspective here, so make sure you're doing it all from your perspective as you're doing this project. So I'm almost to the point where I have to put his next set of arms or legs on, which I love doing that part. So it's always so exciting to see the animal actually come together. Okay, so now I'm gonna get ready to do my next set of arms or legs. And remember, you're just gonna take the one side and you're gonna thread the beads on. So I'm gonna do my 2 teal, and my 3 blue. And remember, this is how you do the arms or the legs or the ears for the animals if they have a different design than the rest of the threading technique that we're using. So now I'm going to take that same side of the cord and just weave it through the 2 teal ones. And that creates his little hands with the blue beads. I'm sure I'm not using the exact scientific terminology that they would use to describe these parts of the lizard, but I am not a biologist or a zoologist by any means. All right, so there we have his next little leg. And I'm gonna do the one on the other side now. And if you're having any issues with this technique, make sure to contact me if you're struggling. I'm always available for extra help if you need it. And always remember to just pull your cord nice and tight with any of the steps that you do until you tie it off at the end. You can usually pull tighter. You just gotta kind of wiggle and jiggle the beads around a little bit with your fingers. All right, so now we have just the last row and then all of his little tail parts to do. So I'm gonna do this last row that I'm gonna call his butt. And then I just have his tail to put on. And then we can tie it off and untape everything and we'll have our wonderful keychain. And I do have to cut my cord again because it is fraying. So just remember, that's why we have those scissors handy. All right, so now I've just put on my last bead and I'm gonna make sure everything is nice and tight the way that I want it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna maybe triple knot the cord at the end. I just really don't want that to come undone. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do a triple knot here. And then what you can do is you can just trim the rest of your cord once you've knotted it enough and you're happy with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim that. And now I can take my tape off. And now I have my very own Bead Buddies keychain lizard. I hope you had all kinds of fun today making your Bead Buddy keychains. And just remember that the technique that I showed you here can be applied to all 4 different designs that we've provided you. If you have any questions or need any extra help, please feel free to email me. My email address is on the little sheet of paper that you got in your Take and Make bag, but it's also on the screen here below. So again, make sure to email me if you have questions or you need help with anything. I would also love to see pictures of your finished Bead Buddies, so make sure to send those along to us as well here at the library. And I hope you'll join me for our next craft project later this month here at the library.